Welcome back to the Catch the Sky podcast. This is your host, Sweet T. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. I think we got a fun topic here. This is the first of a series that we're going to be doing and featuring over the next couple of weeks here.
And we're doing it with heavy heart because this is a show that you and I both love. It's a show that you and I have bonded over and have shared many quotes back and forth, laughing hysterically with each other. So I'm happy to have this conversation. I think we should talk about... We're going to talk about The Office. So excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm really excited. I watched The Office during long portions of my road trip to help pass the time. I mean, I wasn't actually watching it while I was driving, but it was playing. And when you've watched it as many times as I have, you know exactly what's going on, even just from the words.
That surprised me that you were watching The Office as you were road tripping. I know you explained it in a previous podcast so that you were keeping your eyes on the road, but just the terrible music that you tortured me with, I wish you would have at least put The Office on during our part of the journey.
I appreciate that.
I am big Office fan. I was an original fan. I remember we used to pass DVDs around Home Depot when I worked at the Happy Valley Home Depot in Peoria, Arizona, in the garden department. And we would slang episodes. And someone had a copy of season 1, which was hard to get. You had to go to the library to check out the DVD or buy it, right? And obviously times were tough in Bush's America. And so I was cheap, and a coworker had it. He was into it. The coworker, if I had to describe him, is a hipster. A suburban hipster is what he is. Tight jeans. And yeah, from there, I would burn episodes off the internet, and I would make bootleg copies. And I no longer have those because everything's available on Netflix. But now it's going away, and everybody's going to miss it. The Office has become the greatest television show of this era. And sadly, it was not anywhere near where it is now. It's because of the internet that this show got life. And often the internet is the catalyst for that, and something goes to die. And I say that because NBC's Thursday night lineup was phenomenal. It was stupendous. It had so much talent, and yet The Office or any of these programs were not the highest rated program. In fact, they weren't even in the top 20 as far as what people were watching on Thursday nights. So I can't even think of any of those shows now. I'm sure CBS was the leader, as they always are, with some of their CSI Miami series. But either way, The Office has crept up on us, and we love it all. And I thank the British for exporting this beauty. Thank you, Ricky Gervais, for giving us life, for loving us enough to entrust us to appreciate this genius.
So how do you want to break down this first season?
Let's talk about the overall narrative for season 1, and then let's get into our favorite episode, our favorite quotes.
Okay.
The show has a lot of great cameos. Yeah, let's just go from there.
Okay. So overall, in the first season, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat is Michael's just more unlikable, mean. He tries to joke around, but he's just kind of an asshole. It's less of him being an idiot, of more of him just being incompetent.
Complete lack of self-awareness. Yes.
Yeah.
He is completely oblivious to how he is perceived. And I believe he thinks I love the hair, first of all. Season 1, Michael Scott hair. He looks like a Guido, which this is a Pennsylvania-based show. I was going to ask you, is there anybody is that a look in 2004, 2005?
I was 14. I don't know.
I see some pictures with you having your hair like that.
The hair definitely gets fixed from the first to second season. Whoever did his hair did a fabulous job.
So Mike is from Scranton, Pennsylvania, or at least that's where the show is based.
Michael Scott is the regional manager of Dunder Mifflin. We should introduce these characters as we go along, right?
Yes, Michael Scott is the regional manager of Dunder Mifflin in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And we learn about other branches. There's a theme that's consistent with the British version, and that is this is a show about labor, at least initially, because there's talk of redundancy and branches being closed down because of, well, times are tough, right? To quote Michael.
Downsizing.
And that's right. So it's the possibility. This is a show it's a reprieve for the working person, and we honor the working person this Labor Day. So for all the working people out there, thank you for your service. You're truly all essential.
Absolutely.
The show is about labor at its very core, and that's a theme I picked up on instantly as far as who could be fired and whether or not they cared. Have you ever worked in a job where you just didn't care if you got fired?
My last job.
How's that going? Are you allowed to talk about that, or do you sign a non-disclosure?
There's nothing really to discuss.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably better you don't. So, Michael's an asshole. He makes people cringe to the point where people I've talked to who don't love The Office like we do refuse to watch it because Michael is so terrible.
The first season is really hard.
I cringed in the beginning, and I cringed watching it, getting ready for this. He is not very likable.
No.
The thing I think they do well, is they mirror the British version. So Ricky Gervais' character is the exact same. He's very unlikable. He's very idiotic. And you just think, how is this even possible? How is it that he is asking an employee to pick a healthcare plan when he just doesn't want to do it? his Asian accent, alone, when I saw that again, I was like, oh, it's very offensive. But I was still drawn to this show, even though I hated him, because I think I just knew it was going to get better. And what dividends this show pays as this thing moves on. But I think Mike is the kind of guy. Well, they actually admit it. Mike has a futon, and there's something to be said about a guy who has a futon couch.
Is there?
I have a futon. Go ahead, T.
I was just asking you. You're the man with the futon. I'm not the man with the futon. Apparently, you were meant to only have one futon, and the other one was supposed to break so that you could come into contact with this dog.
That is, so you helped me move the futon out into the front yard, the one that broke.
Yes.
And that's where I found Saki, who is my new pit bull boxer. Looks like Frank a little bit, but darker. So maybe some boxer.
Maybe.
And yeah, she was just chilling. My mailman came banging on my window, and he says, "Hey, don't want to alarm you, but you got a dog out in your futon." Well, he said my couch. He didn't realize it was a futon. Shout out to Andy the mailman. He doesn't, how's he going to know? But no, the dog thought it was comfortable. So my thing is that I was told relentlessly in college that futons were for college men. When a man grows up, he needs to get a proper bed with a bed frame. And I just always disagreed with that, because I like the idea of having as much space as possible. And having a futon is such a versatile piece of furniture because it could serve as a couch and as a bed. And if things get hot and heavy quick, you want to just be able to drop it and let's go. Let's do this. Because the idea of having a woman in your bedroom, there's insinuation. So you start out typically, if you have a lady over or a friend over, whatever your situation is, and you start on the couch and you kind of work your way towards the bedroom. Well, what if your bedroom and your living room were the same thing? Like, cut out the middleman. That's what I'm thinking. But I think there's some memes that'll back me up on this, that women were invented by ad agencies to get men to buy bed frames. And it might be on the conspiratorial side, but I think it's true. And I'm happy, though, because I was told that I would never get a girl if I had a futon. And I'm proud to say after 1 week, I got a beautiful bitch. And I'm probably going to adopt her. We'll see what happens. The owners have put out some social media stuff, and I've responded in the Maricopa County Animal Department's behind me, but these people are not responding, so I think they don't want her. She is a handful. She shits and pisses everywhere, and she chews everything. So I got to get used to that.
You got to train her.
I'm working on it. It's been 1 week. I think we almost have the potty training down. I'm starting to learn her behavior. She does the ants in my pants dance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're learning here. So
Futon's work is what you're saying.
Futons, I'm a fan. So that's another thing I like about Mike. It makes sense. I'm a futon guy. I'm pro futon. And actually, some of the futons they make today are luxurious. Like, this is not your grandfather's futon.
Mike is definitely a unique character. He might be ahead of the curve on this futon debate, but he is definitely behind the curve in other ways. Intelligence-wise, diet-wise, we discover at one point that he has a multitude of Filet-O-Fish wrappers in his car.
He looks good. Like, he's buff. Mike Scott is buff. And I don't believe he eats that many fish. Filet-O-Fishes.
Well, it's over the course of several months.
And this is the Michael Scott who appeared in the 40-Year-Old Virgin, and we do see him with his shirt off. And he's ripped in 40-Year-Old Virgin when they take the hair off his body. So it is fun to see, Michael Gary Scott looking so good, even though he eats like shit. I'm surprised you look the way you do, considering your diet. I'm still blown away by that.
See, there's something to say about it. There's something to say. There's something to say about what Michael and I are doing.
Michael Scott is in all of us. Let's go to his relationship with Pam. I think that's one of your favorites.
All right.
So you see relationships develop throughout this show, and more so, I love the dynamic between Michael and Pam, and we see it early on here in season 1. Mm-hmm. And Pam is the office assistant. She could also be characterized as a secretary in 2005, but we don't want to use that term because even then that term was going out of fashion then. So we want to be politically correct, and we want to say office assistant for the Dunder Mifflin Scranton branch.
Mike definitely has a soft spot for Pam. Jim does as well, although she is engaged to one of the men that work in the warehouse, Roy. So Pam Beasley is the receptionist. Jim Halpert is one of the salesmen who has a crush on her. And right. Michael, being the office manager, loves to go to the front desk and harass the shit out of her on a pretty episodic basis, right? Pam! In the first episode, she shows him an agenda that was faxed over from corporate. And to show off for the camera, he has it tossed into the garbage can. And then when Jan from corporate shows up later and asks to see the agenda, he says, "Me no get an agenda," and looks at Pam as if she's supposed to have it. And then she completely throws him under the bus.
She always throws him under the bus.
It's awesome. I love it.
Her name is versatile. So you had the Flintstones thing. Pam, Pam, Pam.
Yeah.
And credit to the writers for coming up with this stuff. Pam, thank you, ma'am.
Pam, thank you, ma'am.
Very offensive.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Pam-a-lamma ding dong.
Also, what does that even mean?
I don't know.
Wham-a-lamma ding. What is that? Is that from the South?
I'm not sure. One of my favorite exchanges between Michael and Pam is when he's practicing for the basketball game and he's throwing garbage towards the receptionist desk. And he's like, off the backboard. And Pam's just like, please don't throw garbage at me.
Oh, Pam with a zinger.
And I think that brings us to our favorite episode of season 1. There are only 6 episodes in the first season, so Not many to choose from. And I think for us it was between two, but I think we came to the consensus that the basketball episode is definitely our favorite episode.
So what is the basketball episode even about?
It features the people in the office playing a friendly exhibition game. Well, what was supposed to be a friendly exhibition game.
Right.
Against the workers down in the warehouse after Michael noticed that they had a basketball hoop down there. So the episode begins with Michael coming in with his duffel bag and acknowledging the people that he clearly wants to play and seeing if they all brought their equipment with them. This includes Ryan Howard, the temp, Dwight Schrute, another salesman, very, very excitable salesman. All he does is seek Michael's affection throughout the entirety of the series.
Dwight, at this point, has probably gone without any mention. And he is the greatest salesman that Dunder Mifflin has ever had. He should be manager. He wants to be manager. But more importantly, he wants Michael's affection as leader. And he wants to play on this basketball team. And Mike puts him on. And we're so appreciative of it because personally, Dwight is the reason that that team hangs in there and wins. And he's the ire of Jim's pranks.
Oh, yeah, we'll get into that. And so this is the backdrop to the episode. And I think it is one of our favorites, mostly because of the hijinks that take place during the game and leading up to it, correct?
Yeah. This is the hype of Michael going down to the warehouse and shooting around and, you know, swish, swish, another minute, just making them one by one after another. And the jaws dropped. African-American jaws. What the fuck is that? Who says that? So again, the assumption that all black people are... I think this episode, again, just continues to highlight the buffoonery of Michael's thinking and overall lack of self-awareness and just own inability to just be conscientious of his behavior and how others perceive it. He's just clueless, and it's just fantastic.
For example, when Phyllis volunteers to play for the team,
he insults her. He degrades her terribly. And she talks about even being a cheerleader.
So Phyllis Lappin is another...
Phyllis Lappin, yes.
She is another salesman in the office, saleswoman, I should say. And Michael just downright insults her throughout this episode. When she volunteers to play, he shoots her down. And then when she volunteers to cheerlead, he is absolutely disgusted. Ugh, that's worse than you playing. And then and then follows it up by offering her a spot on the team.
You're playing. You're in.
Suit up.
You made it.
Stanley Hudson, of course, is another one that is on the team.
Stanley the manly. Stanley is the... There's a few... He's African-American. We could say black as well. What's Stanley's last name?
Stanley Hudson. He's another salesperson.
Stanley Hudson. Thank you. Nice job, T. But what I love is Michael instantly assumes, because he's black, that he's going to be fantastic at basketball. And I will never forget when Stanley gets the ball initially as the game starts and then proceeds to dribble just terribly. Like he has no clue, almost like a third grader. And Michael, of course, isn't happy with any of this. I laugh so hard. And to this day, like I love watching Stanley with one hand out to the side and like staring at the ball.
like up behind his back. I don't understand it whatsoever, and I love it. Michael goes, "Are you kidding me?"
You got to be kidding me. But it breaks a racial barrier, right? The assumption is that all black people play basketball. And that is just not true. But the way they have characterized, the way that black people have been characterized in cinema, film, Hollywood, as basketball players, gangsters, drug dealers. And This is just so unfortunate. But I love that this show tackles racial norms and stereotypes. Just, I don't know if you can say some of these jokes today. I think people would get really offended. But I love it.
Definitely. I love it too. You probably couldn't get away with it in newer shows, but since this one has the age factor, gets grandfathered in, I think.
Yes. I'm making a vote for Michael Scott as the Archie Bunker of this generation. And Archie Bunker is from All in the Family. His chair sits in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., and he is a cultural icon of the 70s. And I think Michael Scott is another inept version of the work in the office, Archie Bunker. And I think his chair, his desk, some piece of the office needs to be in the Smithsonian as well. If there's not a petition for that, some asshole out there needs to start one because we're too busy. We got editing to do.
Oscar Martinez is one of the accountants, and he volunteers to play, but Michael says that he doesn't need him, and he'll save him for when they play baseball or boxing.
So he is the token Latin character. I don't believe there's any other Latino characters throughout the show, and quite honestly, in Northeast Pennsylvania, I imagine there's actually quite a few migrants, and then, of course, Latinos, again, East Coast, so we're probably talking a lot of... Because Oscar is Mexican, as we'll learn. But I'm thinking East Coast, like Mexicans, do they make it that far up to Pennsylvania comparatively to?
Yes.
Here, yeah.
It's not as prevalent, but...
Not like Arizona.
Yeah. So
but obviously
ahead.
The cities I've visited. Yeah, no, like the cities I've visited, like I've had tacos in Philadelphia and they were awful. So I can't speak to the Spanish food. I'm sure it's gotten better. But there's not a lot, so.
So their squad is comprised of, what's the starting five for The Office?
Ryan Howard, the temp, because he is getting paid for working through lunch. So he's getting paid to be there. He doesn't want to be there, but he's going to get paid. Stanley, obviously. And what do you mean, obviously? Stanley's black. Stanley Hudson is another salesperson, and he's put on that team because he's black. Only because of blackness.
Again, highlighting how offensive Michael is.
We have Jim Halpert, who is excited to be there. He wants to show off for Pam. He's playing against Roy, Pam's boyfriend.
Her fiance.
Fiance, not boyfriend. Well, might as well be boyfriend. Jesus. When are they going to get married?
Right.
Dwight Schrute is on the team, as he should be, because I'm advocating Dwight is the unsung hero of that team. Dwight physically is a presence. He's tall. He's got Kevin McHale qualities to him. And he gets in there. He does some dirty work. I think he knocks out the Eastern European chick at one point.
Things do get pretty physical throughout the game. And the bet between the office squad and the warehouse squad is that the loser has to work on Saturday to help avoid the branch being downsized.
Which Michael turns over to Dwight. Dwight willingly does, because it doesn't matter what Michael asks. Dwight will do any opportunity for power.
Well, that was initially the task. But then once everything falls apart, they bet the game on it.
Versus dinner at a fine Scranton restaurant, which I can't think of for the life of me. If you can think of it, please insert it right here.
Farley's? I don't know if that's it.
Farley's. Was it Farley? Sounds right. And I've heard they use actual restaurants from Scranton.
Yeah, it's not actually shot in Scranton.
No. But Poor Richard's and Farley's, these are restaurants and bars you'll hear about, and the pizza places, all of that. I've heard it's real. I've heard it's 100%. Yeah. So if we ever go to Scranton, and I'm sure people do this, they make this pilgrimage. Shows like this are great for tourism. Just need the Ozark show, and now they got a Yellowstone show with Kevin Costner. It just goes on and on and on. Pretty soon every Hawaii Five-0, another fantastic tourism show.
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, yeah, New Mexico. People go to that house. That house is, you can visit the home of Walter White. It's there.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure people love it.
The Goonies, for anybody traveling to the Oregon area, as you well know.
Yeah, I visited that not too long ago. You can see some pictures of that up on our various social media pages by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're on all social media, right? Do we have a Snapchat account yet?
No.
Okay.
But we do have a
More
Twitter.
dick pics.
At CTS Terry. So, wrapping up the basketball episode.
I do want to point out, though, real quick, there were a few product placements that I found interesting. Were Staples, 3M, and RC Cola. And I'm not sure why. I always just assume NBC Universal, this is how they do things. So I'd want to dig a little bit more.
I find the Staples and 3M boxes to be the most interesting because those are supposed to be, Staples are supposed to be their competitor, right?
Yes, big time. It's the reason why they're going out of business.
Maybe they're doing some investigative work.
As we'll learn later, yes, that is reconnaissance and spying is a big part of keeping the paper industry alive at Dunder Mifflin.
Also, there's a box of RC Cola.
Which is odd because as the seasons continue, the soda machine continues to be a generic soda machine. The vending machine has everything.
I do see them sipping on Wegmans Pop later on, if I'm not mistaken, which is, again, a regional grocery chain.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, I did not know that. That blew my mind just now.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, we have Wegmans, a couple of them here. So if you see anything with like the little W on it, that's Wegmans.
Okay. Next time you come, bring some Yingling and then bring some of that Wegman shit.
Okay. The only other thing that I found really funny in the basketball episode is when Michael is describing basketball. I think you know the quote better than I do. The Jazz quote.
So, football is like rock and roll. It's just bam, bam, boo. And basketball is like jazz, you know? You're kind of doopity-doo, doopity-doo.
And while he's saying that, they show an overview of the court, and Michael is heaving the basketball like 20 feet over the hoop into a giant candy cane and other various Christmas decorations that are in storage.
Is that where he says, what is wrong with me today?
I think he says it there, and that's not the main time, but he says it twice, and I think that's the second time.
Okay.
But each time is when he heaves a half-court shot and misses horribly.
He's throwing up half quarters. And that's just part of his love. Like, it's just, you got to be kidding me. I did notice, as part of the appeal of Michael Scott, just him just doing ridiculous things. Like, what human being does this? Oh, he does it. Right?
And I think that's what keeps you tuning in, is what could he do next to toe the line?
I love the basketball episode because we're introduced to the warehouse, and at that point we get a stable filming location as far as what the place of work looks like.
At least the inside.
Yes, and the warehouse is there. I don't see the basketball hoop. Well, I see it a few times later on, but not as prevalent as it was in this one. In the basketball episode, for me, just because we love sports, number one.
It is also worth noting that in this episode that we do meet Darryl Philbin, who is the supervisor down in the warehouse. Michael calls him Mr. Rogers, which is derived from his name, Darryl Philbin. And you get Regis Philbin from that. And from that, you get Roger, Mr. Rogers. Makes perfect sense, right?
To Michael, it does, because he's just a buffoon. And we keep watching. And we go right into Diversity Day. Love the Diversity Day episode.
I mean, where do you start with it? So the whole premise of the episode is that they have to have racial awareness training, I guess. They need to learn to be a hero in the office, as the trainer puts it.
It is Mr. Brown, who's played by Larry Wilmore.
Yes, and he is there to train.
And he is a candidate for our best cameo, which we'll talk about later.
He is.
He's also a producer on the show.
I did not know that.
Yes, his name is mentioned in the credits frequently and often.
Oh, that's cool.
The man writes well. He just hasn't been given his due as far as shows are concerned.
I gotcha. Well, he is there to train the office in regards to race and what is appropriate in the workplace. And we later find out that this sensitivity training is directly aimed at Michael after he made some insensitive comments in the workplace. You care to get into that?
So Michael does the Chris Rock comedy routine, which brings up the question about Michael, I think, actually raises a very good question. President Trump in his RNC speech talked about cancel culture, and this is a larger conversation as a whole. Who is allowed to talk? Who is allowed to say? Who is allowed to speak? And this is a free speech issue, but in a private setting, there are rules, and free speech doesn't exist. And that's the thing that people don't understand about how freedom of speech works, that it protects you from criticizing the government, but it does not protect you while you're at work. In every organization I've ever worked for, from the Walt Disney Company to the Home Depot, you are not allowed to say anything Michael Scott says, and how he does not get fired is unbelievable.
Especially since he repeats it in front of the trainer.
He does. He really does. And it's the larger conversation. One of them that I'm familiar with is whether Quentin Tarantino can do the same thing that Spike Lee does. And Spike Lee has criticized Quentin Tarantino specifically for Pulp Fiction. And because Quentin's use of the N-word, and Quentin goes on to do this, obviously, with Django Unchained and other films. And again, Quentin's an artist, and this is art. And I think when art is involved, I think there is a difference. But I'm surprised Michael doesn't put on blackface at any point throughout season one, that actually shocks me, because wouldn't have surprised me for them to go there.
I think that would have been a recipe to get them canceled.
In 2005, God, if it was done properly, I think if you add Larry Wilmore and Wilmore agrees to it, and there's consensus and they do it right. But at the same time, I think you're right. No, you can't do that ever. It's just terrible.
They do enough. They do enough to toe the line in this episode. I mean, that brings you to the one question that Michael asks when he wants to give his version of the training. What race are you sexually attracted to?
It's a positive question.
And that's the thing with Mike is he brings up these great points.
He does.
But he brings them up in such an abrupt way.
But anywhere I've ever traveled, and you and I both have traveled all around the world, and we know how beautiful women are all over the world. It is ridiculous. I think Colombia has the ranking for the most beautiful women in the world being in Colombia. And at some point, I'm just going to give up on American women and Bumble and Tinder and all these dating apps and just say to hell with it. I'm just going to go to Colombia and find my wife, someone who appreciates me and has an amazing booty. I love them all, quite honestly. If I could meet more Middle Eastern women, believe me, I would. I know that it didn't work out with me and Miss Nepal recently, but I have here in Arizona, I don't know what options you have. You probably have a lot of white women up there in Pennsylvania, but we have a lot of Latinas. I'm attracted to them all. I think they're all equally beautiful.
Yeah, each has its own different characteristics, I guess.
And for whatever reason, Dwight he likes white women. Angela, we'll get there, and Kelly. And Kelly is customer service relations. Kelly Kapoor. She is from India.
Indian. Yeah.
And we love Kelly Kapoor. She's actually a writer for the show, Mindy Kaling.
Yes, she is. As well as...
Ryan Howard.
Yes, that's right. There he is. And in this episode, she briefly leaves during Michael's version of the sensitivity training to attend a meeting, and then returns. And Michael is in the middle of his Indian convenience store impersonation. Is that the best way to put it?
He is. There's a general stereotype in our culture started from Apu. Well, again, all stereotypes are based on some truth. And so my earliest recollection of this is Apu from The Simpsons. There's also a series with Married with Children, Al Bundy's character, always interacting with convenience store guys named Habib. So Habib is the Married with Children stereotype. But Indian people as convenience store owners, Circle K, Quickie Mart, 7-Eleven, that sort of thing. And would you like some gookie gookie?
That's what he says to her. Well, he doesn't say to her just once. He repeats it to her.
What is gookie gookie?
Would you like my gookie cookie? Would you like my gookie cookie? Please buy my gookie cookie.
And Kelly rightfully slaps the shit out of him.
Yeah. There's no warning. She just smacks the fuck out of him. It's awesome.
And I think we learn later on that Kelly is the type of girl that will burn your car. She is like Left Eye from TLC with Andre Rison. She'll burn a house down. Kelly will do some dirt for her man.
Oh yeah, she will. Kelly don't take no shit.
Kelly's ride or die.
I love ride or die.
She is a Valley girl, ride or die. And Kelly is not a stereotypical Indian girl. She sounds like a California Valley girl.
Yes, she does.
She is obsessed with tabloid journalism, and we love her for it. I think she's great.
Yes. There's a scene during Michael's version of the sensitivity training where he has people put different races on top of their foreheads, like on postcards.
Absolutely.
And he has people interact with them based on the stereotype on their forehead, or he wants them to, at least. And they cut to a scene of Michael in his office for a side interview, and he says, "You'll notice that I didn't have anybody be Arab. I thought they'd be too explosive, no pun intended. But I just thought, too soon for Arabs. Maybe next year, balls in their court."
This is 2005, 2006. We're in the middle of the Iraq War. And post 9/11, it's a different world for Arab Americans, for Arabs, for Middle Eastern people,
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, maybe it was too soon.
Right? But then even him just saying that in and of itself.
Hell, I didn't come out of my shell till... It took me a couple years before I was willing to be like, you know what, I am Arab.
What were you rolling with before that?
Most people just assume I'm black or Mexican. So
Gotcha.
I don't really question it. And ironically, racially, Arabs are in the white category simply because Jesus is from Jerusalem, from Bethlehem, right? And so as a result of that's where Arabs are from. And so we get lumped in as white people simply
That's
because
awesome.
And supposedly Jesus looked like me. I've heard rumors, but depending on which Western art form you're looking at, Jesus may look like a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy, or he might look like a dark-skinned Palestinian guy. So there you go. Definitely not looking like Jared Kushner on his recent journey from Israel to the UAE. God, that guy is so translucent. He looks like some type of vampire. Like it is. Kid needs to get some sun.
Well, that's what he's over there for, right?
I hope so. First inaugural flight from Israel to Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. So some peace. I don't know. Trump's going to take credit for it, obviously, but I think those wheels, we didn't start the fire. Billy Joel is a great example of that, and that shit was already turning. So,
Right.
UAE was already on that path. Trump just maybe kicked the door down, but they were already knocking.
So, bringing us back to the office.
There's some Jewish cards as well, and Stanley's very fond of their culture's work ethic. And so, so getting from Israel to Jewish people, they are touched on in this show with the card on their head, and so
I do like when Stanley corrects Michael about the collard greens. Michael saying, he'd like some collard greens or some pad thai. And Stanley says it's collard greens. And Michael replies with, that doesn't really make sense, because you don't call them collared people. That's offensive.
That's offensive.
Which highlights that he's trying. He's trying to not be offensive, but he's just so offensive and he doesn't realize.
Completely oblivious. But another example of that, T, is when he invokes Abraham Lincoln. He quotes Abraham Lincoln incorrectly, just as Melania Trump did in her RNC speech. Abraham Lincoln once said that if you are a racist, then I will attack you with the North. Where is Abraham Lincoln now to attack these white supremacists in Portland, Oregon, or in just all over this country? And I guess the Civil War has not ended. And we need Michael Scott and Abraham Lincoln more than ever, because...
You mean the Vampire Slayer?
Abraham Lincoln, the Vampire Slayer. And we're rewriting history, and history obviously being told by the victors. But I do believe people will believe that Abraham Lincoln said this quote that Michael Scott used. Someone will believe this to be true, just like they believe Abraham Lincoln was a vampire slayer. Yes.
It would be advantageous that he's a vampire slayer, given what you said about Jared Kushner, probably being a vampire himself.
Yes, because Kushner looks like a vampire. He's very translucent. He freaks me out.
So he could kill two birds with one stone by bringing back Abraham.
Abraham is always with us, and we need him now more than ever. But this continues to highlight Michael's good intentions, but at the same time, his stupidity and his lack of self-awareness. Because Michael wants to do the right thing, to quote Spike Lee, but he just doesn't know how to do it right. And I think a lot of people don't know. And most people have not had a chance or an opportunity to meet the other. And fortunate for us, you and I have traveled the world. We've been exposed to different clothing, music, food, and culture, which encompasses all of that. And because of that, I think we're more accepting of the other. We can live and work with other people.
Yeah.
And Michael in Scranton, Pennsylvania, I don't know. It's a pretty diverse. I'd actually love to look at the demographics of Scranton, PA on Wikipedia and see I imagine folks from India, Mexico or there's a Sikh at some, like it's a pretty diverse show as the show carries on. Everybody shows up. But to me, Scranton, Pennsylvania is the typical small town USA, or as James Carville describes Pennsylvania, you got Pittsburgh, you got Philadelphia, and in the middle is Northern Alabama. And I would consider Scranton, Pennsylvania to be a part of that. In fact, I think they voted for Trump this last fucking go-around.
Let's not talk about it. Let's just stay in the office.
Pennsylvania's key. You fucking better be doing something to help this out.
Well, I think doing this might help. Vote for Biden. There you go.
Right?
So that's not the only thing that Michael misquotes during the series. But just in season 1 alone, I think there's a number of memorable quotes, right?
We got a lot of quotes. We got a lot of things that I think that just make this show pop. And then we get introduced to each character. So Angela is an accountant.
Angela Martin.
Right? And in reality, she's Pam's best friend.
In the real world.
They do a lot of shorts together. They're great friends. In this show, Angela is a conservative Christian woman. And they do a really good job of characterizing accurately, I believe, the hypocrisy of conservative Christians in this country. And so Angela has a bias against specific colors, and she insults Phyllis for bringing up the color green because she describes green as being whorish. Whorish. There's an accent there, a Pennsylvania accent. Whorish.
It's because Phyllis is wearing green at that time.
Right. Phyllis Lappin.
Yep. They're talking about what colored streamers they should pick for the surprise birthday party that they're going to throw Meredith.
I love that you know this stuff. This is from Meredith, right? And this is to boost morale because Michael screwed him on the healthcare plan?
Yes. And speaking of the healthcare plan, he didn't even end up picking it. Dwight picked it.
No.
But Jim originally was tasked with it, and his response was, I just don't think this is the kind of task that I'm going to do. You know who'd be great? Would be Dwight. And at that point, Dwight takes over and screws everybody.
Why do you like that quote? Let me ask you that.
Oh, I think it's more just the delivery. Michael tasks him with it, and he plays it off by saying, that's just not something that I'm going to do. Who says that to their boss? If your boss gives you a task and you just tell him no. And then pawn it off on somebody else, and he just rolls with it.
I think Jim Halpert's character, he has all the potential in the world. He'll get all the opportunity as the show progresses. But he does not want any of this responsibility. He is not interested in this life. But
precisely,
it seems to be the only job, like what's available in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Like you're either working in mining, maybe in the coal industry, but otherwise it's what options does Jim Halpert have? He's obviously talented. He's funny. He's bright. He's athletic. But here he finds himself working in a job that he's just not interested in doing. But he's going to continue to do it for 13, 15 more seasons.
Well, that's not accurate. The show's only 9 seasons long.
How many seasons?
9.
Is it? No.
Yeah.
Jesus, I thought it was longer.
It feels longer. There's lots of episodes during those middle seasons.
This is only 6. This season is shorter than my penis. And it's going to go by so quick. But really, some of the other quotes that I love is the constant bantering between Jim and Dwight, and that rivalry takes hold with Dwight trying to figure out who's going to be laid off and asking Jim, do you want to form an alliance with me? And Jim responds, absolutely I do. And this will come back later because Jim teaches Pam that this is the only response that she should ever have to Dwight's question about forming an alliance. And they continue to play pranks on him. And those pranks do end up getting Jim in trouble as he gets a little fresh with Pam, and Roy comes in on that. And we get to see Roy's anger throughout. And that is a narrative that will continue throughout
the series.
Yeah. So they do a great job when you think about it. They do a great job of planting the seeds. I think they knew exactly where they wanted to go. They were like, we're gonna take it here, and we're gonna have to develop each character. What are some other quotes that I think help develop the show and give us an idea of who these characters are?
I think another one that gives you a good idea of who these people are, maybe outside of work, is when Dwight's talking about hunting with his dad. And he's talking about how good deer are at seeing things. They have great vision. And Dwight says, one thing about me, I am better at hiding than they are at vision. And this just kind of goes to show you the ridiculousness of Dwight Schrute. He thinks that he is superior in every way, shape, or form to everybody.
Dwight is also almost equally clueless about who he is as an individual.
Which makes his mindset hilarious.
Yeah, Dwight's on a different planet, and his British twin also has a pretty giant ego about who he thinks he is. Garrett is his name. The British version of Dwight is Garrett. Or Gareth. But yeah, I think Dwight is just such a great character, and he's constantly sucking up to Michael and wants to be like Michael, even though Michael is clueless. And I think that, well, this is really your favorite quote, I think.
Which one?
Cox in the Henhouse. Cox in the Henhouse.
Yeah, this is when Amy Adams shows up to sell purses. And Michael allows her, obviously, because she's a beautiful woman.
Amy Adams, candidate for best cameo.
She is our candidate, one of our candidates, along with Larry Wilmore. But she is up at the front desk talking to Pam. And Michael runs over and says, "Cock in the henhouse." And Dwight follows right behind him and says, "Cox in the henhouse." And Michael says, "Don't say Cox." Even though he's the one that started this whole cock parade.
You said this on our trip. Where the hell were we? Do you remember? Because I feel like on our road trip at some point, this got brought up. And I don't know what context, but I'm trying to remember.
What did I say? Don't say Cox or Cox in the henhouse?
I don't remember. But I just remember, I feel like you have... I think you and I can have a full conversation just using office quotes back and forth with each other.
Oh, probably. I imagine a number of people can. Like we said, it's a very quotable show. And we could probably spend a whole episode just on quotes. But we should probably move along to a couple of things that maybe set the seed, like you said, for future seasons, or just were different.
Did we do best cameo?
Well, we mentioned that we had Amy Adams and Larry Wilmore. Do you want to pick who you think is the better of the two?
I love Amy Adams, and she was
Who doesn't?
Fantastic in The Fighter, right? Marky Wahlberg, Christian Bale. I did it better that time. I remember last time I couldn't even remember Christian Bale's name.
but it's just you and this Marky Mark thing.
I do have a thing for Marky Mark, but I'm a big fan of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Like, that is a great album. And it is early 90s, and he's a fantastic underwear model, and he's a new kid on the block. He's a brother of a new kid on the block, Donnie Wahlberg. And I'm just glad he exists because he's given us so much joy. But that's why because Amy Adams returns in later episodes, I am going to go Larry Wilmore as best cameo because he is a big part of why this show exists. And he does not get any credit. Like, the man works so hard. He's so funny. Maybe it's just his delivery, his style doesn't resonate well with America. And I don't know why, because his late night talk show did not take off after The Daily Show. And I can't explain it, but I think Larry Wilmore, because of his contributions to the show, is my favorite cameo. How about yourself?
Now knowing that he's one of the producers definitely influences me to agree with you.
Oh, that's not what you originally thought, though.
Yeah, well, you swayed me. I didn't know he had contributions beyond being on screen. So you've educated me during the course of this show.
Okay, all right. I appreciate that, T. We're all learning. We're all learning here. You know what else? Speaking of learning, I just learned that Scranton, Pennsylvania is actually in Lackawanna County. And in the 2016 election, I wrongly said that they supported Trump. They actually 50 to 46, 51,983 voters to be exact, according to Wikipedia, to 48,384 voters. So just, I don't know, you're the math guy. I'm thinking 2 to 3,000 votes separated them. But that's how narrow these elections are. And they're so fucking important. And I don't care what, well, I actually do care. Don't vote for fucking Trump. That's all I care about. It's just, you fucking vote for Kanye.
Vote for Biden.
Yeah. At this point, enough is enough. If both parties are the same, then let's get rid of the worst one. And that right now is Donald fucking Trump. Jesus Christ. Okay. He's worse than Michael Scott as a boss.
We can agree on that as well. And I was about to say something that they have in common, besides being terrible at doing their job, is just eating horribly. So that's one of the things that I noticed in the episode where Dwight picks the horrible healthcare, is Michael promises them a big surprise. And they never receive the big surprise. He tries to bring in some ice cream sandwiches as the surprise, but they're not satisfied with that. And so they show him in his office just smashing like 8 of them. There's just like 8 open wrappers before he finally calls it quits. And I just think it's absolutely hilarious. Like, that's what he calls it quits after like the 9th one. Seriously.
Who doesn't love ice cream sandwiches, though? They are delicious.
I mean, yeah, but at that point, yeah, you just got to be disgusted with yourself.
I just wish they had the cookies and cream. So I think that's the only thing is.
That's what Ryan wanted as well. How about you? Anything that you noticed different?
I recall the buildings being different, at least the first few episodes.
They do at least once show an outside shot of a completely different office building than what is later depicted. You're right in that aspect.
That to me is, again, speaks to the British version. That shot is a consistent shot.
Okay, all right, that makes sense then.
I picked up on some of the sports stuff, so I couldn't help but notice that Michael seems to like the Pirates, which are the exact Scranton, Pennsylvania is closer to Philadelphia. I'm not sure why he's not a Phillies fan, because Dwight is, at least sort of. They kind of abandoned that sports angle for Dwight, both as athletically as a basketball player and as a baseball fan. But why Michael likes the Pirates, he's trash talking the Mets in episode 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd think he'd be more of a homer for who he is.
Were the Phillies good in 2005? I don't remember.
I think they were.
Definitely the Pirates were not.
There's a couple extra things that I noticed over the course of the first season that were just different. So I noticed when Michael's in the office with Jan, he takes a call from Todd Packer, and he asks Michael if the carpet matches the drapes, which is some foreshadowing to their later relationship. But also, while they're in there talking, they cut away to Dwight tapping Jim on the shoulder, but then being on the other side of him.
Right.
That classic joke.
Yep.
And there's nobody in the office. There's nobody in the office right behind him where they just showed Michael and Jan sitting. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay.
There's a number of points in the season where you can see the boom dropping down. So, for example, when Ryan first comes into the office and is introduced to everybody.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. And I've actually been told that that's on purpose to kind of remind you that it is a documentary.
Yes, a mockumentary.
Right. So they can obviously incorporate that aspect of it as well to give it a more real feel. There's a number of extra employees. They talk about downsizing, and there's just all these random other employees that we never get names for in various different meetings. So I think in the downsizing meeting specifically, there's a woman to Pam's right and behind her, and then there's a man to her left. There's a woman on Oscar's left. Like, none of these people have names. We never see them again.
No, I think...
Another inconsistency being Meredith's job title.
Go on.
She's an accountant, according to Jim's joke on her early birthday. He says, I think she's 46, but she's an accountant. You can fudge the numbers.
Meredith is such a unique character. I feel like we need to have an episode just about her life as a whole. God, she seems like she'd be fun to hang out with.
What does she say in that one episode? I know it's not in the first season, but I've got waffles and napkins. Or sausage and napkins. It's sausage and napkins, I think. She's just really excited about having napkins. That's one thing that resonated with me.
I think she's also drinking hand sanitizer to try to get a buzz, to get some alcohol out. She's obviously a drunk.
At some point, definitely. So Meredith is not as much of an alcoholic in the first season. I don't really know if they show her drinking too much at all. She actually seems somewhat reserved.
Right.
And we do know that she is allergic to dairy, but Michael goes ahead and orders an ice cream cake for her birthday anyway.
Inconsiderate.
But they show them, yes, inconsiderate for sure, but they end up showing everybody eating regular cake at the party. Somebody dropped the ball at the party planning committee, or they just forgot that he ordered ice cream cake. on the
No, I
show.
think Michael insisted that they order ice cream cake and then insults her for being lactose intolerant.
Yes, but as you'll notice, everybody's eating regular cake at that point in time.
How can you tell if it's regular cake or ice cream cake? I call bullshit on this, by the way.
Well, what do you mean, how can you tell? Ice cream cake has ice cream in the middle of it, and they were just eating cake. They all had just regular cake with squares of fluffy cake and frosting. There's no ice cream.
I'll go back and look at it again, but it's very brief shots of the cake. I don't know how you can tell it. Ice cream cake,
Trust me.
regular cake, it looks very similar from afar.
Don't fuck with me on the ice cream cake, all right?
More importantly, the episode does introduce us to Meredith, who's going to become a wildcat throughout the entire show. And
Really starting in the second season.
oh God, she again. One of the things I love about her is that she leaves me with my unanswered question during the healthcare plan. Dwight is interrogating the office as far as their health problems to try to pick the plan that's best. And he says, I'm going to name out some health problems, diseases, whatever, what have you. And if you have these, you need to say yes. And this is against HIPAA completely.
Oh, yeah.
There's no health privacy. Stanley brings it up. Dwight don't give a shit. He's just gone completely right. And he says, hey, is there anybody here with an inverted penis? Which is probably the Jim being a prankster. But Meredith says, if there is anything that would cover an inverted vagina, I want that covered. And so I'm not doing this scene justice at all. But it leaves an unanswered question about whether or not Meredith might have an inverted vagina. And I want to know more. I'm actually going to ask Google right now.
What, if Meredith has an inverted vagina?
Yeah.
Well, your question will be answered soon enough then, huh? She has had a hysterectomy, which Dwight mentions during the questioning scene. Because she says, do you mean vagina? Because if you do, I want that covered. And Dwight says, I thought your vagina was removed during your hysterectomy. And she said, no, that's my uterus. I still have a vagina.
That's great. I think
What has your Google search given you?
It led me right to the quote. But they're targeting Stanley or Jim as the prankster behind the inverted penis. So
Yeah, I don't know. Are there any other unanswered questions that we're looking for moving forward in season 1?
I think the unanswered question I still have is about what happened to the original Michael Scott from season 1, because we're going to see a drastic turnaround in season 2. But I don't want to give away too much red meat. That's going to be for our next podcast when we talk about season 2, which I can't wait for because season 2 is one of the better seasons of the show.
Yeah, as I've been watching it, I just remember how much I love it. I think one of the things that I would love to explore, maybe someday, is Dwight's parents. Are they alive? Where are they?
I only know about Cousin Mo's.
Right? And he doesn't even show up until later.
I feel like season 2 or 3. I don't know, but he's got a hell of a beard.
Yes. He's not in the first season.
He looks Amish. I think Dwight might be Amish. I'm not 100% sure.
He definitely has some lineage there, for sure.
That's a thing in Pennsylvania, right? There's Amish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of Amish in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of them the other day when we went up to Panama Rocks, New York. We cut right through Amish country.
Okay.
So I think that's a good place to wrap up the episode.
Yes, can we stop? I got to piss. I think we need to wrap the episode up.
Yes. I think that's a good place then to end things. As always, you can interact with us online by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast on Instagram, Facebook, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. On Twitter, at CTSTerry with a Y. And if you do happen to interact with us on any of those sites, please share, give us a like, subscribe, so that we can keep this train of insanity rolling.
For anybody who's hung in here for this and continues to hang in, we love you. We're happy to have you. We're happy. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. So thank you.
Thank you indeed. Please be sure to tune in next week as we cover the second season of The Office. And until then, keep trying to catch the sky.